Well, the Senate is hearing to discuss President Biden's budget, getting a little press coverage. Yesterday, acting White House Budget Director Shalanda Young said that there are no talks planned to hammer out a bipartisan deal on spending levels for the upcoming fiscal year. Joining me right now is former acting White House Chief of Staff, former OMB Director Mick Mulvaney. Mick, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for being here this morning. I guess I want to ask you what stood out at the hearing, but broadly speaking, I'd like to get your take on what the president's budget looks like, where you see the priorities. Of course, President Biden dropped his fiscal year 22 budget on the Friday before a long Memorial Day holiday. And we know that while the EPA is going to see an increase of 22% in spending, Homeland Security gets no increase in spending despite a crisis at the border. Your thoughts?
A couple of different things, Maria. Good morning. Thanks for having me again. I keep telling folks again and again, a president's budget, any president's budget, is not really a spending document because the president doesn't actually spend money. The Congress appropriates or spends the money. So it's a messaging document. So when you ask me what the priorities are, you sort of have to go beyond the numbers. Certainly the numbers are instructive. If you're going to spend a bunch more money in one area and less in another, it sort of speaks to the priorities. But you have to get down into a lot of the policies that are embedded in a budget in order to find out what the priorities are. So what are those priorities right now? The first one that jumps out is that they are going to borrow money forever. The budget never balances. Typical budgets, as does this one, project out 10 years. They never project it ever balancing. So they're going to borrow money forever, and they're going to tax the rich. That's what it comes down to, even if it has a negative long-term economic impact on the country. And if you look into their projections, it does. So they're admitting it's not really a good economic policy, but it's a political policy to tax the rich more. I thought one of the best exchanges yesterday, and give credit where credit is due, Mitt Romney asked the right question of Acting Director Young, which is, you say you want the rich to pay the fair share. What's the number? What's the number? The top 10% already pay 40% of the taxes. Half the people in the country don't pay any. Is that a fair number? Is 40% a fair number? Is zero a fair number? When you say the fair share, what's the number? That's the question I think the Republicans need to be pushing on harder, because there is no answer to that question.
You know, the Tax Foundation will say that the top 10% pay much higher than 40% of all taxes. Tax Foundation says that the top 10% pay up to 70% of all taxes right now. So I want to get your take on fairness there, because you said 40%. I think it's 70%. But also, I mean, look, you mentioned spending forever. Mick, look at the 10th year of Biden's budget. Okay, fine, it's just spending ideas. The 10th year of the budget calls for interest payments to actually exceed the amount of money we spend on defense, okay? So in the 10th year of the budget, you're talking about an interest expense of $914 billion. We spend $700+ billion on defense. I was struck by that.
Yeah, and you should be. By the way, I think you're absolutely right on that 10%. I had it, the 1% I think pays 40%. I think that number you quote about 10% paying 75-ish is also right. But go to your point, which is the amount of money we'll be paying on interest. It's not only that, Marie. It's not that interest obligation grows every single year, and as you point out, gets bigger eventually. Soon, actually, than the defense budget. That's at assumed rates that are very, very low in the mid twos in terms of what the government is paying for the debt that it has. You and I are both old enough to remember that interest rates can go a lot higher than that. 6-8% used to be normal. It's been 14, 16, 18% in our lifetimes. If you get back to those types of numbers, the federal government is effectively bankrupt overnight. So yeah, the numbers are completely stunning. The rates of growth that they assume are so low. It harkens back to the Obama years of saying it's a new normal to grow at 1.8 or 2.0% in this country. It's almost a pessimistic document when you look out, as if they're trying to prepare us for slow times and slow growth to come. So yeah, the messages in the document I think are a lot more important than the numbers, and the messages are all very, very pessimistic.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned this, because you're right. When you actually look at what the suggestions are in this budget proposal, for the first 2 years, he's got a sugar high of growth of 4%. But in the following 8 years, Mick, you're talking about economic growth that they're expecting below 2%. So what's the point of spending money, putting together a budget, if your goal is growth of below 2%? Isn't the goal of this supposed to be growth? Isn't the goal to be, at the end of the day, helping American families grow? And then you've got all of these deadlines. Without a bipartisan spending deal, the appropriators could be facing multiple stopgap funding extensions later this year. Are we once again going to have a conversation of, will the government shut down?
There's a couple different things. On the growth projections, they look stunningly similar to what the last couple of Obama budgets look like, which makes a lot of sense. It's pretty much the same team that Obama had. So you raise the right question, which is, then why spend $6 trillion? Did we need to spend a little bit more to deal with COVID? Yeah, probably $6 trillion. If you're spending $6 trillion of additional money, you should get a lot of growth out of that. And they're telling us not to expect that. But to your second point about looking forward on spending, keep in mind, the government runs out of money the end of September. That sounds like a long way off, except here we are now in mid-June. Congress will take off about, I think it's usually 2 weeks around the 4th of July, the entire month of August. So we're almost up against the deadline already. And for Acting Director Young to say there's been no discussions, that was one of the red flags you're right to pull out about that budget hearing yesterday. Those discussions should have begun weeks ago, because now you're looking at either stopgap spending bills at the end of September, which are tremendously wasteful, or a government shutdown, which I don't think would happen. But that discussion needs to start now.
Well, I mean, Mick, should President Biden just get out of the way? I mean, we've got expectations for growth in 2021 all the way up to 8%, 9% at some people for 2021. The economy is recovering. It's coming back. I mean, we were in a shutdown. The comparisons are obvious. Shutdown 2020, growth 2021. And we've already spent $1.9 trillion earlier in the year, the COVID package. Do we really need another $2 trillion for the Families Act and another $2 trillion for infrastructure? How does the president walk away from a $1 trillion deal on roads and bridges? He's got bipartisan support on a $1 trillion deal. How about just going with it and get out of the way so the economy can grow?
Yeah, it's stunning that you would walk away from a bipartisan bill for $1 trillion in infrastructure. By the way, I think it may sort of shed some light on what this is about. Once again, just as their tax policy is more about politics than it is economics, I think you're seeing that President Biden's infrastructure policy is more about politics than it is about actually fixing roads and bridges. Because if he wanted to do that, that offer is on the table. I think what you're looking forward to is that Biden, you talk about getting out of the way. All you need to do is go back to what we were doing before COVID under the Trump administration. We had more people working. We had low inflation. We had good growth. You fix COVID, fine, and then go back to the policies that existed before that under the previous administration. And that's what they refused to do.
Yeah, but that would be an admission that Trump had good ideas. Can't do that.
Yeah, again, it works, right? You hear the Democrats say about, well, we have to continue to pay these additional unemployment benefits because we don't have as many jobs as we had before COVID. I think you saw the jobs numbers come out this morning. You folks talked about it earlier, saying we actually have more job openings now in the country than we've had ever.
That's right.
And if people would simply go back to work, we would have more people working before COVID. So Democrat policies screwing that up as well.
All right, Mick, great to see you this morning. Thanks very much for walking us all through it. Mick Mulvaney, we will see you soon, sir.